Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video where I finally have my hands on the Natasha Denona My Dream collection. It has been a long wait, but we're finally here. We're finally ready to talk about this collection. So without further ado, let's get started. So this collection has been out for weeks if you are fortunate enough to live in the US, but here in the UK we got the eyeshadow palette first a week or so ago, and then we had a very long wait for the cheek palette. This one took a long time, took its time to show up, okay? So that's what the delay was. So this collection is based around, of course, as the name might suggest, Natasha Denona's like ultimate dream colours and makeup products for herself that she just absolutely loves to work with, loves to use. So it's a very personal collection. The packaging has her own handwriting on it, which I absolutely love, those little touches, and it's a very popular collection that appears to be permanent, so no rush, no hurry, you can wait for a sale. This looks like it's going to be part of her permanent collection and we can wait until it's a great time for us to purchase and we don't have to panic that it's going to sell out or go out of stock, because it doesn't appear that any of these items are going to be limited edition. So let's take a closer look at each of the products available in this collection. First up we have the My Dream eyeshadow palette, and this is available for £64 or $69 and features 13 brand new shades for this palette, as well as 2 existing shades, which is Blackest Black, which is previously available as a single, and Serenity, which previously featured in the Star palette under a different name, Supernova. So those are the 2 previously existing shades. There are 6 pressed powders, 2 cream to powder, 1 multi-chrome, 2 metallics and 2 sparkling duochromes, 1 high shine foiled metallic and 1 satin. And this palette is cruelty free, paraben free, mineral oil free and was made in Italy. Definitely a couple of slightly concerning swatches when I arm swatched these shades, but that isn't unusual for Natasha's shadows. Some of them really do swatch alarmingly and patchy, and they don't seem to like glide across the arm. My arm is always bare for swatches, no like setting, no primer on my arm or anything like that. But yeah, definitely some sort of questionable swatches, but as I said, that's just not unusual. That's really typical for the brand, and that's just not how the shadows actually perform on the eye when you use them. So I wasn't too concerned, but yeah, some questionable swatches for sure. Next, let's take a look at the cheek palette. So this is available for £44 or $48, and it features a cream blush, a cream highlight and a powder highlight, all of which are new shades for this collection. And it appears that the powder highlight is a new formula, the Dream Glow powder. Again, this cheek palette is cruelty-free, paraben-free and was made in Italy. And next we have the My Dream lipstick in the shade Natasha, which is a previously existing shade, but a new formula of that shade for this collection. This will set you back £24 or $27. And this is described as a glistening full coverage colour with super soft hydration and a lightweight luminous modern finish. It is also cruelty-free and vegan as well, paraben-free, talc-free, and was also made in Italy. There are 2 other items that I didn't purchase myself, and that is a lip liner that matches with the lipstick, as well as a gloss, all in the same Natasha shade. So I wanted to have a look at the My Dream palette next to the other sort of midi palettes that I feel like people either think might be similar or may well be similar, so that you can decide whether you have something that kind of does what this does for you and whether you've got something that kind of is very similar in your own collection. First up we have the bronze palette, that's this one, and then here we have My Dream. This is definitely 2 completely different colour stories to me. There's a couple of slightly similar shades in there, a couple of the sort of neutral mattes, but bronze is definitely much warmer than My Dream and just more of a sort of muted colour story overall. Next up we have Glam, and again really not a lot similar going on in that palette. I think the Glam palette, they're repelling each other. It's kind of hard to keep, they're having a little fight there with the magnets, but yeah, I think Glam, you know, you can see it's much cooler. And finally, we have Retro, which is definitely, I think, the closest and the most similar. But I think when you see them together, you can see that My Dream definitely is more of a sort of palette of two halves, where it's got some pinky tones in there, but it's also got kind of half of the palette that really is a warm neutral colour story, whereas Retro, the whole palette really is that sort of pinky mauve, plummy tones all around. So a bit more of a kind of monochromatic palette, whereas I think My Dream is slightly more versatile. So that is everything that you need to know about these products. Now let's actually see them in action. Okay, so I thought I'd start off with the cheek palette just because I'm going to do 3 looks with the eyeshadow palette, and I think that might be a lot to sit through if you're only interested in this. So I've got no bronzer on today, I've just got foundation and I haven't set it with powder, obviously because I'm going to be working with creams today, so I haven't laid any powder anywhere that might disrupt this other than like under my eyes setting my concealer. So I have used this a few times, and what I found is because the cream highlight is a little light for my skin tone, I like to apply this before the blush just because that helps everything kind of melt together better on my skin tone. So I'm going to apply the cream highlight first and then we'll go over the top of that with the blush. So I'm using my Sonia G Jumbo Concealer from the Fusion series, and I'm going to do like cream highlight on this side and then I'll use the powder on the other side because they are very different beasts. So I'm just going to go into this cream highlighter in the middle. This brush picks up like the perfect amount and I'm just going to gently pat that. And it is a really pretty subtle highlight. You can also use a finger to build it up if you'd like. For me, it is a little light on my skin tone, but I can definitely use it, especially if I use it in this way before the blush, because the blush over the top is just going to sort of help it melt into the skin. Otherwise, it can leave a bit of a cast on my skin tone. For reference today, I'm wearing Shell Beige from the Tom Ford Shade Illuminate foundation. Now the powder highlight in this trio, which is this one here, is no joke, okay? Go careful is my advice. So I'm using the Sonia G Fan Pro and I'm using a really light hand because I have made mistakes. Mistakes have been made with this highlight. So again, a little light for my skin tone, but it is a beautiful highlight. Very poppy, very metallic. Certainly not kind of my typical highlight. It's very, very bright for me and what I typically go for. Very, very metallic, very extreme beaming type of highlight. So yeah, totally different beast, like a really bright pop metallic. And this was, believe me, I used a very light hand and I've blended that in. This can be insanely metallic. And then this side, much more natural, melted into the skin with the cream highlight. So you've kind of got, you know, a bit of choice there, which is nice, depending on the effect you want to go for. So now for the cream blush, and I'm using my Sonia G Jumbo Base, again from the Fusion series, and I'm just going to dip into there. I have used Natasha's cream blushes in these sorts of palettes before and actually surprisingly get on nicely with them. I'm not really a big cream girl, as you guys know, don't love working with creams, but I do find these Natasha Denona cream blushes to be really easy to work with. They don't feel like cream at all. Like even when you swatch and you kind of run your finger over the product, it doesn't feel like cream to me. It feels like a cream to powder. Like it's just, they're not as wet and creamy feeling. They don't have as much slip. They definitely feel like more of a cream powder hybrid to me, which is great because I find them easier to work with. They don't move product underneath and you only need a very small amount. They're not as intimidating for those of us who don't love to work with creams because they just don't really feel or perform like a cream. They actually work really easily, just like powders. So that is the cream blush applied with the powder highlight on this side and the cream highlighter on this side. And I think it's a really beautiful, easygoing, everyday mauve blush. It's not like my favorite type of shade when it comes to blush, but I think it looks really pretty and it's really easygoing and it's very fresh and natural, but it does lean a little pink for like my typical preference. I definitely prefer the cream highlight in the palette because it's just a lot more natural and smoother and more flattering on my skin. I just find this one is a bit much, enhances your texture a little much, and I have to be really careful with it or it's just like way over the top for me. And both of the highlights are a little light, so both, you know, if I layered them on top of the blush, it just looks a little light. It literally looks like a streak of highlight. So now for the lipstick. So again, this is not really my shade of lipstick. I don't really feel like it suits me. I feel it's just that sort of, it's too light. Again, I would definitely need to wear this with a liner, but even then, I don't want to have to wear a liner with a lipstick really, but I feel like this whole collection really, apart from really the eyeshadow palette, but this whole collection is obviously designed for like Natasha Denona. It's her dream collection. It's very much tailored to her preferences and her skin tone, and she is much fairer than I am. So I feel like this would look better. As far as the cheek palette and the lipstick, I think it's going to look way better on you than it does on me if you have a like fair to light medium skin tone. On a medium skin tone, the highlights are a little light. They need some like working with to get them to work on my skin tone, and the lipstick is definitely a little light and it kind of washes me out. So now let's move on to the eyeshadow palette, and I'm going to be doing 3 looks, and of course we're going to speed things up with some music, so enjoy. Okay, so we've done the comparisons, we've done swatches, we've done the demos on the face and the eyes and the lips. What are my final thoughts about this collection? So the cheek palette, as far as its performance and the idea of it and how everything works, I think it's gorgeous. I think everything applies really nicely. I like that it's got a really dramatic highlight and a more everyday, easier going, lighter and more subtle, subdued highlight, because it kind of means you can either pick the one that you like the most or you can use it in different ways. For me, I would use the cream probably most of the time on my cheeks, and maybe the powder down the bridge of the nose or on the eyes, or, you know, inner corners, things like that, where I want a bit more of a pop from my highlight. So it kind of gives you those options. As always, the formulas in here I really like. I think Natasha's cream blushes are really easy to work with and I've never had any issues with them. Overall, the colour story in here isn't just quite doing it for me, for my personal preference and my skin tone. The highlights are both a little light and the powder is a little much for me. I do like the cream, but that's, yeah, again, it's not my favourite formula. I do prefer powder highlight, but the colour of the blush just isn't like my typical go-to colour. I don't feel like it suits me as much as kind of warmer peachy neutral shades do. But that's not to say that I don't think it's a really nice palette. It's just not my personal preference and taste in shades. I do, however, love the size and the functionality of it. The mirror and the packaging across all of these products I think is beautiful. It has a lovely feel to it. It feels really sturdy. All of the closures and everything feel very nice and the mirrors feel very nice. Overall, I think it's a great product. The colour story is just not my thing. Really, the same thing goes for the lipstick. I love Natasha's creamy lip formula. I think it's a very nice formula. This shade is just not for me. It's too light. It's too much of that mauvey tone. I just think it disappears on me and it kind of washes me out. So again, I like the formula for somebody else, just not for me. Again, packaging is gorgeous, but I know I'm not going to wear this very much because it's just not my shade. So now we come to the eyeshadow palette. Now, let me just tell you, I almost gave up on this, gave up waiting because it was slow to come here to the UK, and then it was like I'd kind of missed the boat as far as getting an early in-time review up for everybody. So I really started thinking, do you know what, this time of year there's a lot of makeup coming out, maybe I'll just pass on this collection altogether, pass on this eyeshadow palette, you know, I don't really need it. And also, when I first saw the colour story, I was super excited. But then I saw the swatches and I got less excited because I just started to think, do you know what, it's really just another mauvey, plummy eyeshadow palette. And I just felt like I already had these shades from the brand. It felt very repetitive to me. And I was really hoping this was going to be like much more of a sort of neutrals palette. I was hoping it was going to be like the Glam face and eye palette, but like more eyeshadow wise. So yeah, then when I started seeing the swatches, I was like, okay, it's not as neutral as I thought it was going to be. So anyway, I did buy it, obviously, it's right here. Spoiler alert. So I got it and I started using it, and I don't know what it is, but on me, both in the swatches and on my eyes, it actually runs more neutral than I think it looks, and that I've seen it on lots of other people. I absolutely love this look that I did last, the third look that I'm still wearing now, which is Nurture and Familiar, and then basically Spontaneous on the lid, or even just forget Nurture and just do a bit of Familiar in the crease and Spontaneous on the lid, or Thrill on the lid. I've been like wearing that quite a lot, and it's just a very easy go-to everyday beautiful neutral eye. I love the Nurture shade, which I knew I would. Really nice, sort of slightly different, cooler running matte. All of the shades in here and the shadows in here perform beautifully. I haven't found a dud. I haven't found one that doesn't blend beautifully or give me enough punch. I feel like overall the shimmers in here are more like what I want from Natasha. She's done a lot of softer shimmers recently in her palettes. In here, they're back to those punchy shadows like I love from the Glam face and eye palette. So this is giving me everything I want it to give when it comes to formulas, but it really surprised me in how much I love it. It's much more versatile than I thought. It runs a lot more neutral and a lot less pinky purple than I thought it was going to on me. You know, even Aspiration, I think I thought that was going to be a really dark, very plummy matte, and it is a dark matte, but it runs more neutral. It looks more neutral on me. And I don't know if that's a personal thing or whether other people are finding that the swatches and actually how the look comes together on the eye, it kind of is a little misleading, because I'd say, you know, yes, there are a couple of these two shades here are obviously, you know, very plummy toned, but actually everything else is pretty much neutral, and they're not as sort of overwhelming and bright as they may look in the pan, which is quite a common thing that I experience with Natasha's shadows, especially when it comes to her creamy mattes, that how they look in the pan and how they swatch and how they look on the eye is like 3 different worlds. So this was definitely a surprising one for me. I love it so much more than I thought I was going to, and it's definitely going to be giving Rephr a run for its money as far as like top palette for me of this size, this midi size. It's gorgeous, it's very versatile. Like I said, it's got lots and lots of different combinations that you could use for everyday like soft glam looks, which is exactly right up my street, and I'm getting a lot of use out of it and really enjoying it. So for me, this collection, like, this is the hit. Everything else I feel like you can pass, and there's nothing in there dramatically that you need to get your mitts on. This for me is like the hit from the collection. So there you have it. That is everything I have to tell you finally about this collection. I can only apologize for the delay, but I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I'd love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.